We have a quorum.
Oh, online.
We have to 6 in person. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we should Kevin will be here by this. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. I'll ask our board secretary to call the roll.
Chair Kaplan.
Here.
Vice Chair O'Connell.
Here.
Arish Spencer. Matt Harris.
Present.
Praveen Kaptel. Hillary Orr. Kirsten Phelps. Here. Kevin Greenlee. Ajay Thomas.
Present.
Arthur Wicks.
Present.
Chair Kaplan, we have a quorum, but not for voting. Those absent are Reese Gudger, Praveen Kaptel, Hillary Orr, and Kevin Greenlee.
I know Arish and Praveen plan to join us on Zoom a little later. Kevin is likely on his way, but definitely feels a more intimate group tonight here around the table.
Hey, can someone send Arish the link? He just texted me.
Tell him I can try, but double check his inbox because the link doesn't change.
Okay.
So he should already have been sent it maybe yesterday. I'll work on that if you want to start, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll move on into our public comment period, and I'll ask our board secretary. I think that might be Kevin. Oh, yes, there you go. Okay.
Hey, how are you guys? Watch your.
So we now have a quorum to vote, Kevin. So
Sorry, I'm late.
that's all right. So your board secretary writing furiously, so I'll wait. For speakers, please finish what you're doing. We don't have any pre-registered. Okay. I'll ask if we have anybody in the room who wishes to be recognized. Do we have anybody on the Zoom who would like to be recognized? Please use the raise hand feature. We'll pause for a moment to see if there's anyone seeking recognition.
Hands going on.
Nope. Okay. So we move into the chair's report, and of course, our first item is as our staff has artfully. Can you move back to the happy birthday slide because we need to stop and recognize happy birthday Dash.
Yep.
Beautiful graphic that I'm sure our marketing communications team put together. So today is Dash's 42nd birthday. We have some. Do you want to introduce the refreshments that we have?
Yeah, certainly. Well, the team brought some cupcakes, which are decorated with a Dash 42 years. And then you brought some incredible cookies. So we have double the sweets. We're fully loaded.
Yes.
If anybody wants
see none of our staff have any plates with them, so I don't keep punching at the facility, but please at least take some of my cookies home because these were in recognition of all of your efforts to respond to our snowcrete and to keep Alexandria moving. So there are lots of cookies, and there's actually, I only made half the batch, so I'll bring the rest in April because I know several of our board members weren't able to join us tonight. So please enjoy, and if you like them, take some home with you. And I'm going to try the cupcakes as well. So it's really, really nice. I do have a couple of items to report on. The first is our stockholders meeting. Just a reminder that's on March 24th here in this building in our temporary council chambers. This is the night in which the board members are reappointed. We will hopefully welcome a new colleague as well, who is part of the slate that our nominating committee brought forward. We've been given about 30 minutes to present to council. That includes the business items. So we do, staff is working on some slides to kind of highlight our accomplishments. We'll also be, with a nod to the conversation we had last month about kind of One Alexandria, but sort of raising just some of the operational concerns that we had about getting transit service back, particularly the access to stops, and just looking to ask the council to explore partnership opportunities that would allow us to be able to respond to that faster and get service back up and running, give people safe places so that they can wait while they're boarding and alighting the bus. I'm very interested in hearing some of our council members feedback on that. And I know there was a snow response operations response kind of debrief that the city did. And I know Stephanie's chief operating officer participated in that. And so I know Josh, I haven't had a chance to talk about how that meeting went, but look forward to hopefully hearing about how transit was sort of handled as part of that conversation, because that'll inform what we do as well. And then secondly, Jesse and I met with the chair and vice chair of the DAC over the weekend. We had a sit down at a ice cream place, ice cream coffee place that Jesse recommended. What was the name of it?
It was Sweet Side, right next to
Sweet Side.
Side 10 over there in Arlandria.
So if you haven't had enough sweets, you can go over there because they had my favorite ice cream flavor. I've only had one other place. It was in downtown Annapolis, which was peanut butter Oreo. I've had coffee Oreo before, but never peanut butter Oreo in any other place. So now I know I can get it here and I can bike or take Dash over there. But that was the substance of that was a happy coincidence, a surprise of our meeting. But the substance of it was that we wanted to sit down with the DAC leadership to talk about kind of the work that they've been doing. They were set up in 2021, really set up to be independent of the board. They don't report to us, they don't roll up to us. So we've kind of let them have their own bandwidth, but we wanted to kind of understand the work that they're doing, the challenges that they're facing, and how they feel that they can really stand up and advocate for riders. And Jesse, I think, put it really well, where he talked about, our group sort of having some alignment messages that we send to decision makers. So that way we can all be very clear about what are the needs for Dash. Coming out of that conversation was first a recognition of the hard work that they're doing, but also the desire to bring the DAC to the board to kind of present on some of the work that they're doing and plans that they have for the future. I want to give a DAC member, that Jiang, credit, who had brought this idea to me actually a couple of years ago, and the DAC was undergoing some leadership transition at the time, so we weren't able to do anything with it, but she had reminded me of it as we were planning for this meeting, and so I presented that to Nathaniel and Jim, who were really enthusiastic about it. And so the idea is that we're going to take our June board meeting and we're going to make that an opportunity for the DAC to present to us. They have 5 subcommittees. Each of their subcommittee chairs will kind of report out on things they're doing. They want, in addition to kind of highlighting things that they're doing, they want our feedback in how we feel as we're plugged into the community, as we are riders ourselves, how the DAC can be most effective. And so I look forward to it, kind of envision it being a two-way conversation. We also talked about having some networking, socializing at the beginning of the meeting, just so we can get to know the DAC members. And I think that'll be really helpful, and also make them feel like they're really included as part of kind of the Dash infrastructure. So I know that the DAC leadership has a meeting coming up with Camilla on Friday, and so I know that'll be one of the topics of conversation. I think the only thing we're going to probably do is put some time parameters along with the business items we have as to how long they can present for, but we're going to let the DAC sort of decide where they want to take this presentation and have a chance to meet them. The other thing I did coming out of that meeting was we don't have a place on our agenda where we sort of put DAC updates and correspondence. And so you may have noticed if you went into Boardable after this weekend that we added a section under other committee reports where the DAC, if they need time, can send a representative to report out, but also will put any correspondence that they send. So for example, since our last meeting, they did their budget advocacy letter. A copy went to me, a copy went to many within the city, obviously our council. But I realized that we didn't have a place where we just put it so you can find it. So it's there on Boardable, and any correspondence that comes in will be available in that place on the agenda. So that way it gets the spotlight that it deserves. So really encouraged by that. Any and Jesse, anything you want to add?
No, you were really captured. I think the main thrust of the conversation was collaboratively working to communicate better. I think we realized there was a little bit kind of they were doing their thing, we were doing our thing, and we sort of assumed that there was some going back and forth, but we're going to be more deliberate about it.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, that's all I have from my report. And again, cookies, enjoy. Ed cupcakes. The TNES report. Jordan's gonna sub Hillary.
All right, Becky Jordan Xanes, Transit Program Manager. Happy to be here this evening. Hope everyone is doing well. So I'm not going to go through everything in the notes, but just want to give kind of a high level overview. I know much of what's here you all have heard some version of or in the past. I just want to kind of give a general update about where things are with the regional transit items that are in the packet. So the first one, and the one that's really been dominating much of the conversations, is what's going on with transit funding and budgets more generally. The DMV moves, planning effort, and the WMATA budget are very closely aligned in terms of what's projected for capital expenditures and what's needed for operating budgets for the next few years going into the future. SGA 28 was Virginia's response to trying to figure out how to meet those transit funding needs. The initial bills that were proposed did not move, but they're working to put the $153 million in operating funding into the budget, which is under consideration, and we'll have an answer on whether or not that passes on March 14th. So I don't have a definitive yes or no right now, but we should know in the next few days whether or not the money is there to support the transit operations that are proposed through, regional planning efforts that we've all been involved in. On the implementation side of DMV moves, we kicked off that effort in February. So the initial meeting I attended, and I'll be meeting with Steve E next week to kind of get a read in on everything that's going on with the bus priority working group. And really, it's just a broader coordination effort to make sure that all the agencies are working collaboratively to help achieve the bus rapid transit priorities for the region. And kind of the key one for us is Envision Route 7, which is connecting Tyson to King Street. And that's also, as you all probably know, one of MVTC's key projects up right now. There was a meeting just a few days ago, and kind of the key consideration for us is whether or not the configuration of the southern terminus would be, whether it was going to be just Mark Center, just Southern Towers, or some combination of both. The recommendation is that it will be both. I think that's what we wanted and everyone wanted to see, especially with Southern Towers consolidation coming with the transit center. We want both stations to be served. In addition to that, I know Metrobus is looking at funding to provide service to actually tie that route into the new West Alexandria Transit Center so that we can continue down Duke Street and all the way to Old Town. So the work is converging together nicely to create that Tyson to King Street connection that DMV Move Plan outlines that's been endorsed by the region, and those things are moving forward. And the last thing in the packet is the Old Town Circulator stop rebalancing. Silas has been working hard to make that happen. They presented at Traffic and Parking Board last month, and that's been approved and is moving forward as well. So happy to report that we're making progress, and provided we get the funding from the state, everything should continue to operate smoothly. So happy to answer any questions.
Just one on the Route 7 changes. What is that envision to begin if funding lines up, or is it still just a conceptual study?
So the study is mostly complete. Obviously each section depends on the jurisdiction. So, the goal is really to just kind of have a coordinated vision of, BRT along that corridor. Different jurisdictions are going to have different treatments along certain corridors. And so actually part of the DMV Moves effort is to really get everyone on the same page about coordinating schedules and figuring out what's the level of service, what kind of treatment, and making sure that the efforts are coordinated. But the work that MVTC is doing is really a technical study, provide recommendations of what they think it should be. It's up to the individual jurisdictions to actually that work. So ours is really centered around Southern Terminus. That's where it touches our boundaries. That's why we're doing Southern Towers and improvements to Mark Center, as well as Alexandria Transit.
So still the F20 route moving through it. It's just that some of that may be dedicated lanes or sped up as a result.
Exactly. Yeah, so that efficiencies. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jordan. And do you want to introduce Owen or?
Hello, everyone. My name is Owen Albrecht. I'm the paratransit manager. And I'm just going to chat through some of the highlights of the paratransit program, where we're at the moment, and where we're going. So we're doing quick program overview, current service performance, recent program updates, and then upcoming initiatives. So the program is the city's ADA complimentary service to the Dash program. It is demand response. We schedule through reservation software that we use the vendor Spare. Operations is provided through a separate vendor. We have We Drive You and their subcontractor user. Technology platform manages everything at this point. So we have one central software that's managing our dispatch reservations and all reporting that we do as well. And so this is for the past 3 months of reporting. So January, December, and November. We see that an average trip length is about 20 minutes, which Spare is able to show us what that trip would be scheduled for had that person taken fixed route instead. And so system-wide, we're about half the travel time as a fixed route alternative. And when we look at our trip distance, we split it up between our two vendors, We Drive You versus User. And this is not to say that User is more efficient. It's just the way that we're dispatching trips to these two vendors. User does not operate shared ride service. We Drive You does do shared rides. User tends to pick up the shorter distance trips, the easier to accommodate trips, where We Drive You is left with the longer distance and more challenging locations. We average about 3,100 trips a month. Now, this is requested trips, not unlinked passenger trips. We are billed per requested trip. Unlinked passenger trips that we report to everybody who asks for that reporting metric is not an effective reporting mechanism that we've used within the city, because about 20% of our riders are certified with a PCA, and that PCA would not be traveling without the qualified resident. But federal reporting says that that PCA is a separate unlinked passenger trip.
Can you explain what PCA is using acronyms?
Yes, PCA is a personal care attendant. So riders who cannot ride within the vehicle without supervision and require additional aid, they can bring a personal care attendant with them at no additional cost.
Just to follow up on that, is that, does the rider then certify when they go through the application process that they'll require a PCA, or is it just assumed that they can bring somebody because they're going to the exact same destination?
So when a rider applies to the program, the signing off doctor or social worker or designated staff who is approving, or who is speaking professionally on their behalf, dictates whether they believe that that person should have a PCA or not. And then once we receive the applications, we determine whether that person is required to ride with a PCA or may ride with a PCA. We average 104 trips per day. We see about a 25% cancellation rate with only a 3.5% no-show rate. The difference there is riders are scheduling their trips in advance. People's life changes, they cancel trips ahead of time. There's no penalty to the rider. No-shows are when a rider cancels a trip within an hour before the scheduled pickup time, or the vehicle arrives at the pickup location, the person denies the trip, or the person does not show up for the scheduled pickup time. And so 3.5% has been our average since I started for about 2 years at this point, and it's consistent. That's a very healthy level. We start to see degradation in quality of service above 5%. And so we do continue to look at this metric, and we don't have any challenges with it at the moment. But if things do happen, we can always adjust policy to change rider behavior there.
Question about that. Do you have a breakdown between when a rider cancels it and when the driver just doesn't pick them up, or there's an issue with the driver? Do you have that breakdown?
So the issue with the driver would be considered a refused trip. And that's when the vendor is not able to accommodate a trip. And that does not exist.
Okay, so there's no conflict between drop riders and drivers?
I don't think I'm understanding your question.
So like if people have an issue with the driver, they're
Mhm.
like, you're rude to me right now. I
Mhm.
don't want you to pick me up or take me anywhere.
Yeah,
Like, do you have those metrics?
so rider-driver conflicts do result in situations where we have requests from customers where they'll say, I no longer want to be picked up by this staff person.
Right.
We are not able to accommodate those requests. Those requests would be a fundamental alteration of our service, and therefore customers will get the driver that they get. And so we have very few incidents where a rider will refuse a trip because of an operator interaction. But those are tracked through our complaint management process, and so the metrics around those look quite different than these numbers, which are all collected digitally with GPS and the software collects these metrics for us. Whereas customer complaints, we manage on the back end through 311, and then we can do meta-analysis on a semi-annual basis to see what our highest complaints categories are. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, because you contract all of this service out, is there a penalty within the contract with the providers of the service related to those types of situations? I guess following up on Ajay's question about. So just from the perspective of kind of understanding how it affects customer experience at the end of the day.
Right, so we don't have a liquidated damage for that category written into our contract. As we go out for bid this year, there will be a much longer list of liquidated damages that we can assess. Based on my experience with investigating complaints, neither party is solely at fault.
Hmm.
So for an operator to have committed such an egregious act that a customer is at no fault in the interaction, I have yet to investigate a complaint where that was the case. Yeah. And on-time performance has been absolutely fantastic. We have met our on-time performance goal since July. We expect on-time performance to be 95% or above, and we have been at 95% or above since July, with February being 97.4% as well. This is post-COVID trip recovery. We are still at less than half of our trip volume that we were pre-COVID. And this is where we are. Some recent program updates. We did a fare restructuring at the beginning of the calendar year. We had not updated fares for about 5 years. The main fare adjustment was to maintain with inflation and also align closer to regional partners. We added a fourth fare zone to account for longer distance trips. So the way the program operates, we have our mandated service area that is required by federal law, and then we have the service area that the city has determined we also want to serve. So our federally mandated service area is our fare-free zone. It's all trips within 3/4 of a mile of a dash route. And then any trip that falls outside of our fare-free zone, we have different tiered fares for, depending on how far away from the city your trip is. And so those are $5, $7, and $10. And then we also implemented a peak charge, an additional $2 only for those fare zones that charge a fare. So if you're within the free zone, there is no peak charge. And the goal there, we were seeing on-time performance was not acceptable, but it was at like 87%. previously. But we saw during these peak times, on-time performance was abysmal. It was like 40 to 60%. And so in order to adjust customer behavior so that we could have vehicles available in our mandated service area during these peak times, we suggested to council a peak fare of $2 additional during our peak times. It's too soon to tell if the changes in the fare structure have impacted customer behavior, especially since January we saw significant weather challenges and travel behavior was very different to January. And so at the end of this year, I'll be pulling the full year's worth of data to look at travel behavior 2026 versus 2025 to see if we accomplish those goals. And bring back to council any adjustments to fare structure if needed. Questions on fare? Okay. We also implemented an AI agent for our call center. We received a lot of feedback around the operations of our call center. One of the most common complaints was, I'm waiting on hold for too long. I don't want to wait for 3 minutes to speak to an agent. I want to talk to somebody right this second. And so the way we have our call center set up now is during our call center operating hours, the live agents are ringed first. And then if all live agents are currently taking a call, the customer is pushed to the AI agent. The AI agent determines your identity based on your phone number, which is registered to your account, and is then able to provide you updates on current trips, upcoming trips, past trips, trips that have been canceled. It can schedule you trips. It can provide information about policies and procedures. It can do 90% of what a live agent can do. And then if the AI agent is not able to solve your concern, then it pushes you back to the live agent, and that's when you wait in a queue. So we've seen both positive and negative feedback with the implementation of the AI agent. The AI agent works phenomenally in providing accurate data, but the customers don't like that the agent requires confirmation of any data that the customer has tried to put into the system. So the most common concern is, I spoke to the AI agent, I wanted a trip from point A to point B for tomorrow, and she asked me to confirm it twice. But the way she confirms it, the way the AI agent confirms is, thank you so much for telling me about your trip. I'm going to tell back to you what I believe you told me, and then let me make sure that that is correct. And so the most common complaint is she talks a lot. But what the agent is doing is making sure the agent has the accurate data. And so we have very few data errors when it comes to trip scheduling. And because the calls are recorded, we can then also look at a live transcript and the audio recording if we see errors, and submit tickets to the AI agent vendor to address any concerns there. We've seen pretty good interactions with individuals with speech impediments and challenges speaking as well. I've been really impressed with its ability to interact with people with very different speech patterns. The agent also speaks both English and Spanish. So the agent has allowed us to provide a Spanish option during all call center hours, not just when a Spanish-speaking live agent is available. And it also allows customers to get all of their booking and scheduling and trip information 24/7, both in English and Spanish, even when the call center is closed. And so we see about 8% of our trips are currently booked through the AI agent. Excellent. Questions about AI?
So people, when they call in, they're automatically put to the AI agent, or are they given the option to like stay on hold in the queue? Or you automatically push them to the AI agent to talk with them?
So if the call center is open, right, the first option is a live agent. And then if the live agent isn't available, it's the AI agent.
So it automatically goes to the AI agent. They have no option to go back into the line.
Correct. So when you speak to the AI agent, you could say, I'd like to speak to a live person, and then it will bump you into the queue. And so you don't have to spend any time speaking to the AI agent if you don't want to.
And then for Spanish language, actually speak Spanish? It speaks Spanish?
It
Because I thought news article about another place, I think in Washington, where it was like Spanish accent or their vendor. And it was like, whoa, did anyone test this?
Yeah,
So this actually speaks Spanish.
yes, it does actually speak Spanish. We've had both city staff and call center staff
Okay, test it. Okay.
test it. And it does speak real Spanish. Yes.
Making sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's
Are there any other languages like you're planning to roll out, or it's just Spanish for now because of the current population that uses the service?
We would absolutely love to extend the service to the city's most spoken languages, but the vendor does not currently have the profiles for Arabic, Amharic, Urdu. Those are languages that in the vendor's market are very small. And so we've voiced our desire for the languages spoken in the city of Alexandria. It's not currently on the work plan for the vendor.
Did you folks have to key into a database or something, all the expertise, the answers that AI gives out?
Yes,
And that was a one-time type lift?
yes.
Was that significant?
Nope, it was taking our policies and procedures document and formatting it in a way that AI can read it and then pasting it into a web page.
So you didn't have to actually key it in, you uploaded?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, the user interface for the back end for the management of all of our software information and IT products is very user friendly. And I do most of it, so.
Oh, and you have a question online from Rish.
Yes.
Hey, and sorry if I missed it, but I was just curious, who is the vendor? I don't know if you can talk about that. Yep.
Yeah, the AI voice vendor is Spare, the same company that does our scheduling and booking software.
And do they rely on an LLM? I assume that they probably do to process all the information that you're putting in there.
Yes, my understanding is they have built one out internally. It's within the Spare platform. It's not outsourced to one of the big ones. It's specifically for their platform.
Okay, thanks. Because yeah, that especially with the type of intake information that's coming in and the population you're serving, I was wondering about the data that it's ingesting and then what it's doing with it. But if they built it captively, I hopefully imagine that it's all staying within their system. So anyway, that's interesting. Thanks, and yeah, that's awesome that you guys launched that.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with their data security so far, especially with the AI agent. The AI agent can read the entire customer profile, and it can tell you about your trips that are coming up only if you're calling from the number that's on your profile. So if I call in and try to ask about somebody else's trips, it can't. And if you call in from a number that isn't registered at all, it doesn't even accept your call and it pushes you to a live agent. Okay. Upcoming things, the vendor We Drive You has had a newer fleet delivered and is currently registering the vehicles. We generally operate 13 vehicles a day, and they've brought in 9 newer vehicles. So their fleet is shifting from a mix of accessible minivans and VOCs to more minivans, to transit vans, and will maintain 2 VOCs on the contract. VOCs is body on chassis, and that is a vehicle that has van front, and then like if you cut the back off of a cargo van and put a bus body on the back, And so we currently operate both 14 and 24 passenger VOCs. And it has been a challenge for them to staff commercial drivers with CDLs. And so the 24 passenger vehicle is generally used for charter service or programs we coordinate with TCHS and Parks and Recreation, RPCA. We ran a bunch of their summer camp transportation last summer, and so we'll do that again this summer. And that's for their adaptive recreation programs, so that we can transport all the kids in the same vehicle. They don't have to find an accessible taxi to pull users who may require additional mobility accommodations, and we're able to transport everybody in the same vehicle together. So that's been fantastic for person recreation and parks over this. Yeah.
Is that AI license an annual license, a subscription type thing, or
Yes, so we pay per interaction.
per interaction?
Yes, and per positive outcome is my understanding. So if the agent is able to do a function, then we're billed. But if the agent is not able to assist the customer, we're not billed for that interaction. And so we pay like a retainer fee and then a per interaction fee.
How does it determine if it was successful?
So there are categories of outcomes, and if it's able to put that outcome into the database, whether that's creation of a trip, the checking on a status of a trip, canceling a trip, creating a profile, there's like different categories. And if it's not able to accomplish any of those, then that's considered a failed interaction.
Okay, thanks.
And so the fleet upgrade has been very, very excited for another significant concern that we've been. This addresses a long-term concern of our riders where the vehicle quality is not up to their expectations. And when the contract was awarded in 2021, the way it was bid, the vehicle fleet was very old. And so our next RFP will address that with requiring newer vehicles, different specs on age of vehicles and how long a vehicle can remain in service. And we're going to be much more stringent on those requirements in our next RFP. But this is the vendor operating in good faith, showing us that they want to provide positive outcomes with us, and bringing in this newer fleet of vehicles. And also transitioning away from VOCs provides a smoother ride for our riders who use a mobility aid or a wheelchair. The main reason is in a VOC, the customer who uses a wheelchair sits behind the rear axle, where in a minivan or a Sprinter van, they sit in between the two axles. And that provides a much more comfortable, smoother ride. Yes.
It's from the fleet stuff, so the drivers and stuff, that's contracted out, is that
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
The vehicles, does the city own the vehicles?
No.
Okay, so the contractors are doing fleet updates.
Yes. Yeah. We were awarded a grant from COG for the creation of the travel training program. We are awaiting confirmation from the federal government that the money is actually available. Our goal is to launch that program in July. And that we're currently in the process of building out the scope of work for travel training, and then we'll go out for quotation in the next couple of months. Go out for quotes in the next couple of months with the goal to bring the vendor on operating July 1. So the goal of travel training is to teach our community, people with disabilities, older adults, and others how to use both fixed route, metro, VRE, capital bike share, wayfinding around their community, just getting people out into the world with the ultimate goal that we are diverting trips away from paratransit and also expanding our community's access to all the transportation options we provide in the city.
Oh, and I just on that, I wanted to mention when in our conversation with the DAC, actually, one of the things, the Dash Advisory Committee, one thing they were very interested in was helping to support travel training within the city. So I think that would be a wonderful group to partner with if that grant comes through. So
Yeah, absolutely.
throw that out there.
Yep. We're also working to launch a mobility pass. This is in coordination with DCHS as they revamp their taxi voucher program. Their program provides subsidized taxi rides to seniors with income threshold. We are going to piggyback on that RFP, use the same vendor to provide a very similar product to the riders of paratransit. So the new RFP is going to switch from a taxi voucher to a preloaded debit card. And the debit card will be issued to the resident. And then a certain dollar value can be loaded on by the city each month or quarter. And the resident is able to use that debit card to purchase different transportation options in the region. So we're able to restrict the purchases on the debit card by purchase code. And so they can only use the card on taxis, Uber, Lyft, reloading a WMATA Metro Smart Trip card, Capital Bike memberships, those types of products. And so that is going to be a win-win for both departments. They're going to have a much more streamlined process, a much easier product to provide to the residents. And then we're going to be able to provide trips to our riders that they schedule themselves whenever they want. We currently don't offer same-day reservations. And so this is one way to expand the options of transportation for our riders. So they can book, just like Uber and Lyft, you book a trip right now and it picks you up in 5 minutes. And so this is a twofold response, both from our customers and from city council. It's expected to save the city a significant amount of money because of how we're currently billed for our paratransit trips. And if we can allow a customer to take those trips directly through Uber, Lyft, or taxi, then we can see some trips are a fifth the cost of what it costs the city currently. And also customers have been asking for same-day trips for many years now.
Would then senior taxi users since you're piggybacking on the RFP, are going to also receive a mobility pass, but is it going to have the same functionality in terms of what they can use it for as people who are approved for the paratransit or?
Yes, so it'll be able to be used for the exact same products. The eligibility process to receive the card is the only thing that will look different.
The amount of money given to each?
Yes, it'll look different as well. So that department will determine how much money is given from their funding source. And then we have yet to develop the official policy for our end, but the expectation on our end is that we'll look at a customer's last 3 months of travel, look at how many trips they take, and then understand an average cost for those trips and load them onto the debit card, that dollar value. So the goal is to allow people to shift trips off of paratransit if they choose, but not to then have this program where we see a total trip from 3,100 a month to 5,000 a month, because now people have all these free trips that they're just doing whatever they want. So that's how we're going to meter it for the first year. We'll definitely start the first 3 months with a pilot with only 10 users, understand how those users use the program, and adapt the policies and procedures as we go.
I suspect you have people who are both in senior taxi and in the paratransit
Yes.
program, so they would just get potentially 2 purses to reflect that right now they can take 2 separate they can schedule trips under either umbrella.
Yeah, so depending on how the vendor bids, we would either have one card, and then on the back end, our 2 departments would determine which is the priority funding source and then the secondary funding source, or we would just issue them 2 separate debit cards. And then our last project, we're working to get Spare into other departments as well, so that we've been tasked with looking at all of the transportation options we offer as a city to seniors, older adults, and people with disabilities, and creating a one-stop shop, centralized product that they can call one number, they can go one place, and they can get any transportation option they need. And so the goal of this is step one. That's like a 10-step goal for like the next 10 years, it seems like at this point. So bringing Spare into DCHS's fleet for their special transportation unit, which provides grocery store trips, trips to senior centers, adult daycare. They do their own transportation things there. Looking at getting the software in that vehicle, we can then look at what their trips look like. And then we can also push trips back and forth between vendors and fleets. And the ultimate goal is to see where efficiencies lie. Do we need to now bid that in with the paratransit contract? Can we operate it separately? Can we push trips from paratransit over to them? What does our cost look like for both of these? And we can start to compare apples to apples. We're also going to work with Parks and Recreation, Parks and Cultural Activities for some of their vehicles, mostly around summer camp, transportation, and therapeutic rec, which is an after-school program for students with disabilities, and possibly pulling in different mentorship programs as well, which may have their own vehicle, with the ultimate goal of not having city vehicles out there in the world that are only getting driven 300 miles a year. We want all of our city assets to be utilized to their fullest extent and most efficient. So those are our big upcoming activities, and that's my last slide.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Can I just say, so you may know some of the history on this, but in 2013, the city councils as the Dash stockholders revised our bylaws and basically said, you guys have jurisdiction over paratransit, or in terms of the oversight of paratransit, because I think that happened because it wasn't anywhere else in a city body. And I was on the board at that time, but very new. I always had some ambivalence about that because I always felt like the Commission on Persons with Disabilities is probably where that belonged. But I also understood that since that is a commission that is not staffed by TDS and has a very broad mission, that it probably made sense for that probably they were thinking, okay, a transportation related body that has Hillary sits on our board probably makes sense that we have it. But I always felt like we struggle to perhaps get feedback from people who are paratransit users to be able to do that. So could you talk just a little bit about some of the outreach that you do and how you are connected to other groups within the city that advocate for people with disabilities who use the service?
Yeah. So our call center vendor is Senior Services of Alexandria. They are one of our largest connections to the senior community in the region. They are currently our main outreach mechanism. We went to, I don't remember what the body is called, but there's a group of seniors that disseminate information across the city.
Senior ambassadors.
Yes, the senior ambassadors. And so I presented to senior ambassadors a few months ago. They include paratransit information in any of the outreach activities that they do as well. We had not done a ton of outreach, and now I would say this year, as January onward, is where we're starting to push paratransit and doing that outreach. Previously, we were working on solving all of the challenges internally and getting a robust, fantastic product before we then told the community about it. And the travel training program is going to be a huge part of our outreach model as well. My goal is to bring on another vendor in the community, or a vendor in the community that has those connections as well, to both tell people about all the fantastic other options there are, but also as the fallback be paratransit. We do a quarterly postcard mailer to our active riders. And so that provides updates on what we've done, metrics around on-time performance and other things that show we hear your concerns, we hear your complaints, and this is what we've done to address them. Also connecting them with additional resources. This upcoming mailer is going to have information about senior recreation programming. And we have a 311 ticketing process. I implemented that as well for the formal complaints. We now receive all complaints through 311. Those who use the mobile app or use text messaging through the Spare platform can provide feedback for each individual trip, and we can pull reports on that. Between 20 and 30% of our trips are booked through the mobile app any given month. So we do receive a significant amount of feedback. Those two channels look very different. The trip specific feedback mechanism is overly positive, and the 311 ticketing system is overly negative. So that's why we have both, because the way you're prompted to provide those two feedbacks is very different. And so that gives us a good balance gives us a pulse of how our customers are doing. We also do a every other year rider survey. And so that's coming up in the next few months as well. I'll be drafting that and probably bring on a vendor to mail out surveys to a subgroup of our riders. It's not going to be a census, but it's going to be a survey. And then we'll compare that data to the survey from a few years ago.
We'd love when you have survey day, we'd love for you to come back. This is a great forum to present on that. We'd love to partner you to ensure that, community members have a voice in the paratransit service, and that we can help you by providing a platform where we can, and connect you to all the other transit programs that exist. So thank you for all you're doing to make this program stronger.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, okay, we always leave space on so I mentioned that we have a letter from the DAC that appears on your related to budget advocacy that appears on our agenda. We always leave space for other members of the board that to report out for other boards, commissions that you're a part of, anything for the benefit of the group. If not, then we will move on to the approval of the meeting minutes. February meeting minutes are in your packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion. All right. Is there a second? Second. Jesse. Are there any corrections to the minutes as they were presented? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes. Financials will be deferred. The budget presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and sorry about the financials. Edward had to go out unexpectedly on some medical leave, but he will be back. So he's doing okay, and I just had to defer that because of his time.
Please send him our thoughts.
I will. Thank you. Have no action items, so yeah, the financial reports was the only thing in this section. I'll talk about it.
Oh, okay, you mentioned a city manager proposed budget presentation. So do you have anything?
I think I might have that out of order.
Okay.
I will do that after, I've got that with all of my slides after Yvonne does her presentation. I wanted to make sure she had sufficient time to do it.
Okay, yeah, Yvonne, we will.
Yeah, great. Good, well, we're super excited to finally have a chance to present this. I know it's been pushed a couple of times. Will it work far away?
Just click the left button.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Great, so this is a culture slide that we include in orientation. We always open with the slide, and we spend quite a bit of time here. Really making sure that our new employees understand the mission, the vision, the values in particular, what creates our Dash difference. And we do talk about our strategic plan goals. And we do focus groups for new hires. A lot of the feedback we get back is that this is really important to them. People who come from other agencies typically feel like a number, and they feel like, gosh, really there is something different about Dash. So we're really proud of that. We did, as you know, our very first employee engagement survey at Dash just about 1 year ago now. And we learned a lot. We partnered with a company called Qualtrics, and we asked all of our employees to complete the survey. We had 130 responses, which equaled 42%. And you might say, well, that's not very good, but it was expected. We thought that number actually might have been a little bit lower. There's a lot of reasons why people do or don't respond to a survey. Maybe they had an experience in the past. Maybe they don't trust the tool. Maybe they don't believe that it's anonymous. So we partnered with Qualtrics and we did a lot of communication around the fact that it is anonymous. And we did get 42% of our population. You could say, well, that's at least statistically significant. So we felt confident in the responses that we did get. Qualtrics is a company that partners with Washington Business Journal to do their best workplaces surveys every year. And they actually publish those surveys. So this was pretty normal, pretty expected. 130 of the 308 employees that we had at the time, we have now closer to 330. So just thinking about the overall score that we did get, the total score for all responses on the survey was 77.5. And so we look at this number as this really is our total overall engagement score. Again, we wanted to make sure that we got a baseline. It was our first survey ever done at Dash. We got more information than we expected. In a few minutes, you'll see why. The number of comments were inordinate. I mean, we were really very, very pleased. When people take the time to write comments, it really shows that they're engaged enough to give you that anecdotal feedback. So we felt good about that. So 77.5 is the total score for all items on a 100-point scale. So when you think about levels of engagement, there's several organizations out there. Most probably you've heard of Gallup, right? That's sort of the biggest one that measures the Q12, the CE11. And in fact, Josh just went to an organizational department head meeting, I guess, at City of Alexandria, and they're actually partnering with Gallup to do their survey. It's not right-sized for us because it's very expensive. But the Qualtrics survey was right-sized for Dash in terms of the number of people that we have employed and the level of and quality of data that they give back was really very good. And that's why we chose to partner with them. So when you think about a disengaged employee, who is that? That's the person who's generally negative. They generally approach everything sort of glass half empty, right? And they're likely impacting the productivity of others. So those are the people that we want to keep a very close eye on, because if they start to pull others their way, right, then total overall engagement does this. So we keep an eye on those. I will say of the 130 that we had, there's only 3 people at the time of the survey at Dash that are in this category. When you think about barely engaged, these are people that are sort of indifferent. They may be a square peg in a round hole, right? Not the right fit for their job. Generally lack motivation. They're at risk for loss, right? They're at risk to walk out the door. And they're the people that are sort of indifferent. You might see them acting sort of very neutral throughout the survey. You know, they score kind of right down the middle. They're not really willing to commit one way or another. But we do want to pay attention to these people because, again, the more barely engaged people you have, the more likely they are to be actively disengaged. We had 17 employees that were in that category. In the moderately engaged, this is the group that is usually most interesting to me because there's something that's holding them back. Usually they have an opportunity for increased performance, but maybe they haven't been given that stretch assignment or something that's going to get them super excited to be at Dash, but they are engaged enough that you can sway them one way or another. So I always see them as sort of the ones on the fence that if you can grab them and bring them over to the green side, right? The really highly engaged side. That's the group that's really going to impact overall total engagement. And we had 37 people in that category. Now, highly engaged. These are the people we want more of. These are the people that we want their opinions. We want their stories. We want to capture their stories. And we want to retain them. These are the people who do their best work when you're not looking, right? They don't need a supervisor to say, hey, I need you to, really pony up and do this work or follow through on this task. They're going to do it anyway, right? So they usually bring a high level of engagement and motivation themselves, intrinsic motivation to the workforce when they join the organization. But these are the people that we want to capture. We have 73 of these at Dash. at the time the survey was conducted. And these are the people that we really want to capture as ambassadors. We have an ambassador program now. We know that some of our ambassadors are in this group. And so we really want them to tell the story to others, recommend Dash is a great place to work, and bring more people like them to Dash. So these are sort of the 4 levels of engagement, and very similar, as I said, Gallup and other tools have a very similar story to tell. So where are we compared to others? This is a slide that shows it's Qualtrics data, so it's their database of record and all of their companies that are in their survey. And you can see Dash at the top, and then companies of same size in the region, average, what they call extra large finalists, we're in that group. Top 3 companies of the same size within our region, and this is the most interesting row to look at compared to us. Right? We want to be in that row. And then nationwide, and then other services. So our highly engaged, moderately engaged, fairly engaged, and disengaged are represented by those colors at the bottom that we just went over on the prior slide. And you can see that the red line, we're not too far off the benchmark, right? So generally, organizations obviously have fewer disengaged employees. What we need to work on is getting the 56 closer to the 87, right? We want more people to be in that highly engaged category, and therefore we have to do what? We have to shrink that barely engaged 13 and that moderately engaged 28. So those are the 2 categories that we're really working on to try to figure out how do we flip their mindset and their motivation to be a Dash over to be highly engaged. So category results. The survey presents 39 statements that are grouped into these 9 categories. So you can sort of read what the categories are. There's not an even number of statements in each of these categories, but employees are asked to rate their agreement to the statements on the survey across these sort of 6 Likert down at the bottom, from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And you can sort of at a glance, I like this picture because it at a glance shows you where we did really well and where we didn't do very well. It's also interesting to say, but it's not so easy to identify where we didn't do very well because the red are pretty equal across. What's not equal are the yellows and that sort of dark blue area. So where did we score really high? We scored high in engagement outcomes. And this one is my favorite because it asks things like the statements that people have to rate are, I am proud to work here, right? I am inspired by the work we do. And I would rate, or I agree with the statement, Dash is a great place to work. Those are, to me, the most fundamental engagement statements or questions that you can ask employees, because if they're engaged to those questions, then you know that you have a high level of commitment to the mission, the vision, and the what? The culture, right, that we started out with. So I am proud to work here. Yvonne is proud to say that we had 81% favorable response to that question. Places where we didn't do so well, communication and resources. It's not because the red is so big, it's because the yellow is so big, and we need to get that more blue, right? So questions or statements in there, when the organization makes changes, I understand why. Anybody read the book Start With Why, right? That's a really fundamental concept that we're working on. I have the information I need to do well, do my job well, and my opinions count here. I want to know that I'm seen, I'm valued, I'm heard, and my opinion that is valued, right? And that when I speak up, I'm in a psychological safe environment. We just did training for the maintenance supervisors, and we talked about that concept because we want the supervisors who are closest to our employees to create a psychological safe environment where people say, I have an idea, and they won't be reprimanded. Or I want to point out something that's not so great, right? and there won't be reprimanded. So those things are important. This area also asks or has a statement about, I have the materials and equipment I need to do my job really well. Remember from Stephanie's presentation a couple of months back, we talked a lot about bus availability over the past 8-10 months. There have been a lot of changes in, John's here in the maintenance area. And we know that that has increased bus availability, right? So if we were to ask this question today, this very question, I guarantee you we get a better answer. So those are some of the things that we're working on. Now, if we look a little bit further about benchmarks, this is also an interesting slide. Good. I just wanted to point out the top 3 areas. So engagement outcomes, team dynamics, and future outlook were the areas that we scored the highest. So category benchmarks. A 6 in this gray area means everybody answered strongly agree to every statement on the survey. Not likely possible, but you could hope for it. So the gray represents dash. You can see on the far right, those kind of overlapping ones are the orange, nationwide, same size as dash, and all companies of same size within the region. It's interesting to me that they're kind of scoring similarly. The ones that are winning, though, are the top 3 companies of same size in the region. You can see their blue bar is the farthest out to the right. They're the ones that make the list. They're the ones that land on Washington Business Journal Great Place to Work. So our average results are in the gray, and you can see none of them are a 6. I want them to be a 6, right? So that's what we're working on. In terms of favorability, where we scored again really well, and the things that we're really focused on. The top things, engagement outcomes. I went over some of those statements before. I'm proud to work at Dash. I would recommend Dash as a great place to work. They also asked, I feel accepted by my immediate coworkers, and I find my work engaging. Again, those are things that are representative of the overall culture at Dash, and we're very proud of these results. Where we need to work the most are the items that scored the least, obviously. And a lot of these are really communication. Even though they're not grouped in the communication category, I'm included in decisions that affect my work. That's a communication thing at the end of the day. My immediate manager coaches me. So my immediate manager communicates with me about my performance. And again, my opinions. Now, what comes up always on surveys, negatively scored, is what? Pay, right? So we know that we went into the survey knowing that, and we also knew that, well, we might not be able to do that much about it because why? We have a collective bargaining agreement. However, we can communicate what makes up your pay. So if you think about that, I know you know this, what makes up your pie chart of your total compensation. Megan, who's our recruiter, is here tonight, and she would say one of the best ways we can sway a candidate is to talk about our benefits. We pay 90% of benefit cost, and employees contribute 10. In addition, we contribute 8% to your 401k. This is unheard of in the general world right now, right? We contribute 8%, and what? You don't have to contribute a penny. So telling employees or telling candidates that, I know Megan will say that's the easiest way to sway a candidate is to go over those top two items. So we know these things. We know we've got work to do on communication, but we want to hold really steadfast on the fact that we feel like people are proud to work at Dash, and I think that's super cool. Another couple of things about age and tenure. It's interesting to look at age and tenure. If you can see this on chart, the 56 to 65 is the scores the most favorable at Dash. The next one, the least one, is the 26 to 35. Our youngest employee is 21. Our average age is 48. And so you can sort of see how they score with a current count in each age band. We've got work to do with the younger population. but we know that we can capture our older population, right? We did a lot of awards today. Josh is gonna talk about those in a second. For people who've been with Dash for a long time and just recognizing people. And it was really, really cool to be together, today. And the other thing that's interesting is tenure. Those that are less than 1 year, that's the honeymoon period, right? I just joined Dash, it's super cool, I got this new job. And then the people in the next category over 15 years or more, right? Those are the people who've been with Dash the longest. And those are the two happiest categories. A lot of research has been done about that 3 to 5. There's quite a U shape that occurs with 3 being down at the bottom of the U. I start in my honeymoon phase, I tenure down to 3, and I come back up to where I feel like I have stability. 3 seems to be a magic number in a lot of organizations right now, so we're considering what can we do about the group of 3, the group that's been here 3 years. So just thinking about how we can recognize them and sort of continue to capture them so that they'll stay with the organization. So as I mentioned, we've got a lot of comments. We had 342 total comments from 130 people. There were general comments. People wrote just, in general. Explain why you rated the organization as you did. This follows the statement, I rate Dash as a great place to work. And then we asked, or the survey asks, what would you like the organization to start, stop, continue? So sort of a common question on surveys. Things that people said about why they rated the organization the way they did. They said Dash is home. Dash is family. And it has a great mission, right? So connected to the mission and the vision and the culture of the organization. What do they want us to start? They want us to start town halls. They want to see more senior management visibility, right? We did some of this today. We're going to talk about that in a second. And they want to understand the why. When Dash makes a change, they want to understand why did you make the change, right? Otherwise, they just think, well, people on high made a change, but it affects me. And they want to know why so they can understand how it affects me. Things they want us to stop are, we got a lot of comments about hiring without experience. And if you go back to the previous slide and you think about the people who've been at Dash for a long time, they're interested in hiring more people like them, right? People who have tenure with the organization, people who have experience. So that's what they're interested in. Also, eliminating silos. Don't work in your individual departments, work more collaboratively. And I think you'll see that in the strategic plan work that we're working on. Continue what? Hire the best. Continue benefits that I talked about. And continue community interaction. We got a lot of comments about being out with the community and the work that Camilla and her team are doing. So the survey also asks, what are 3 words that best describe your work environment? The most mentioned word was friendly, but you also see challenging up there. Challenging could be good or bad, right? There's no context here. Just what are the top 3 words that describe your work environment? I love that a lot of people said respectful, diverse, fun, professional, but friendly was the top one. So some of our engagement plan examples, focusing on communication. We've implemented town halls, listening sessions. We are doing stay interviews. In fact, as we speak, we've got our new hire focus group going on. And as you know, we launched our ethics hotline. In the next category, focusing on individual needs, we may have talked to you about our quiet room. We have a quiet room where people can come and relax, and we did a major overhaul of that last year. Our 401k to allow employees to contribute their own money on day 1. It used to be at 90 days. We're doing lots of webinars.
Employer match starts 90 days, is that?
Employer match
Okay,
starts.
you are only enrolling them one. It's not even a match, it's just the automatic.
That's right, just,
Yeah, but that starts at 90 days and that remains, so
You've got it.
employees can.
Yep, exactly. Doing webinars on financial management. We're offering these things, trying to get people to attend them. It's another matter that we need to work on. We had an on-site medical van, that was very popular. Focusing on development, in a minute, you'll see a little bit about that in the CTAA Leadership Academy. And focusing on fun, you're gonna see that in a second too, just kind of how we've been celebrating our employees. And you have your hat, all of our employees will receive that next week during Transit Worker Appreciation Day. So looking ahead, strengthening participation in digital suggestions. That was something that came coupled with our ethics hotline. So we want to really try to get more digital suggestions. It's an anonymous way of reporting things. And we hope that that will help us improve innovation. Focusing on the supervisor monthly series that I mentioned, or frequent coaching, and then holding department heads accountable, because those department heads and supervisors are most close to the people doing the work for increased communication. Again, getting back to explaining the why and soliciting and recognizing suggestions. And then of course, we'll continue our focus on hiring the best. So thank you. Obviously, I'm very passionate about this topic. Employee engagement matters, and I'm super excited and just wanted to say thank you to this board because I know you believe the same. And I just want to say thank you for your support.
Very impressive.
We've got some questions. I'll start with Art.
Sure. On one of your earlier slides where you had the participation by categories, like operators was kind of one of the lower categories. We had a chance to dig into why, or what is that, just that they're not sitting in front of a computer every day kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. I think Qualtrics doesn't offer a translated, you asked about translation earlier, they don't offer a translated survey. So you have to rely on the Google Translate button, which is right, exactly. Kind of so, right? So partnering with an organization or partnering also with Qualtrics because they know it's an issue. So I think that was one thing that hindered participation. I also think trust hindered participation because they just weren't sure if I fill it out, can my name be attached to my answers, right? So that's just on our part trying to do more communication.
I think Arish has his hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, David. And Art, I was thinking of that as well. And another question that I was wondering about was, can you just help us think a little bit about, or tell us like how we should be thinking about the non-respondents in the sense of, I think if I remember correctly, it was like a pretty sizable number, like 58% maybe. Would you expect if those 58% had responded that they would, their responses would be in line with the others when you think of the percentages of folks, let's say, who are disinterested versus or disengaged versus engaged or whatever else? Or would you actually expect that the folks that hadn't responded would be more likely to increase the percentages that were on the kind of lower ends of those responses, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Thanks. And thanks for doing the math. The 58% was the ones that we didn't get an answer from, right? And those are the ones that we need to figure out, how do we get them to respond next time? We did believe that the 42% was statistically significant enough that we could trust the results to say that this is representative of the whole. So if we got more people to answer, Arish, to your point, we do believe that they would be similarly structured around those 4 levels of engagement.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thanks a lot, and thanks for the presentation.
Hey, Yvonne, thanks for the presentation. How do these results of the survey compare with like objective sites such as Glassdoor or other type of rating sites by former or current employees?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Glassdoor gets, positive and negative reviews as it relates to just being a tool. There's a lot of places that people can praise or complain about an organization. Glassdoor is certainly one of them. We need to do a campaign to get more people to participate in LinkedIn and to post on Glassdoor. When I was with Marriott, we did a huge campaign to get people to post on Glassdoor, thinking about their immediate supervisor, their division leader, and the CEO, Chris Vasetta. And after we did that campaign, we saw the scores go very much in an upward trajectory. And we also saw more candidates coming into the pipeline as a result, because people do research on organizations that they may join. And certainly Glassdoor and LinkedIn are places that people do research.
Thank you.
So, Artie.
It was very clear.
Go ahead, please. I've already asked a question, so.
No, just to go back to what you said, you want people to post on LinkedIn and Glassdoor. Is there an incentive tied to that, or is that just you want employees to do that freely?
At Hilton, just to give an example, well, actually, we did it at both at Hilton and at Marriott. I remember at Hilton, we had the conversation about incentives. And we thought it would be, kind of a fake way of saying, you know, we want you to give us praise, you know. If people feel connected to the culture and the mission and the vision of the organization, and you say, hey, it's just like your hairdresser saying, hey, would you do a Yelp review, right? If you're motivated to do it, you're gonna do it, and it's gonna be positive. If you're not motivated to do it, you're probably not gonna do it. And if you're motivated and angry, then you're gonna do a negative review, right? So incentives, I think, you know, certainly there could be a day where we serve a lunch and everybody comes in a room, and this is an opportunity for everybody to post their review. I've seen those types of incentives, but not tied to a monetary one.
You know, people feel forced to do something.
Exactly.
Part of their job. I greatly appreciate your presentation. It's really great to see that friendly and fun were like the big words, but challenging. Any like insight into why people thought the workplace was challenging?
Yeah, that's one of the
questions.
Yeah.
At a certain level to do their jobs, or because it's challenging them to use their skills in a different way.
That's a really good, that last one. I think what we're gonna do on our stay interviews is ask that question. You know, how did you answer? Not how did you answer, but you know, would you agree if you took it today that the workplace is friendly, challenging, fun? And then I think that's a good place that we can ask the probing question of, if you would answer challenging, then why? Because we didn't get any context, right? Challenging, as I said, could be one way or the other. And I think we're gonna use the stay interviews to ask a little bit more probing and to understand that. I think also too, if you think about the people who answered not so favorable on, I don't have enough tools and equipment to do the job, bus availability, right? That could be the person who was answering, well, it's challenging because I don't have a bus. I can't do training right now because I don't have a bus, right? So.
Okay, well, thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, of course.
Victor.
Yeah, so you actually segue into what I wanted to ask about, which is that, why don't you expand a bit on the stay interviews and who's doing them and how you're, something that's really hard to systematically collect data on. So what's the thinking?
Yeah, the approach right now is we're focused on a specific group of people who are hourly non-union. So we want to talk to them first, but we do want to expand it to all levels. Right now, it's just me conducting the interviews, but I do want to get a couple of other kind of a cadre of people who have sort of been trained to conduct the interview, know how to do probing questions, know how to capture answers, that type of thing. But really trying to dig into some of the answers here, because it is a year old, right? And we do have new joiners to the organization, so that's the importance of us doing the focus groups, the new hire focus groups. But anyway, we're focused on non-union hourly rate.
And Reese, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, David. Matt's question made me think of another one. I'm curious if your team has thought or is considering certifications like Great Places to Work, or I think of something like Cranes, which I think is specific to New York City, but things like that it feels like maybe Dash could obtain based on the positive results that would then help with recruiting as just a signal that it's a great place to work or whatever the certification.
That's great. One of the top scores on the Great Place to Work survey itself for the past, I don't know, 12 years, I think, is Hilton. They put a team against it. They focused on it. They spent money on it, and those surveys cost. So that when I said earlier, Qualtrics was the right size for us, it was right sized in cost. But it still provided good quality data. To do Great Place to Work starts at about 10,000 just to run the survey and to get their results. The good news about them though is they have consulting teams. They'll come in and really focus with you collaboratively on trying to figure out how do you get your scores up in certain areas. And that's how Hilton got up there, because they really utilized their consulting teams. And worked collaboratively over, I think it was a 3-year period, to really focus on what is pulling our scores down and how can we get them up. So
That's really interesting. I didn't realize it was so involved. And I'm just curious, like, if that is the case for a much smaller organization, or because obviously with Hilton being, I don't know how large the workforce is, but let's say, 100,000, 200,000 employees, probably more than that globally, I can see that $10,000 investment and all the work that would need to be done to generate a result, and the work that would be done to generate the reporting that you would use internally. So I'm just curious, like, if that would be the same, but maybe you guys have already explored it and obviously don't know enough. But if it's a relatively small org, if there would be like a lighter tier or
Great place to
something.
work is, yeah, it's an organization. They're based in San Francisco. They have gotten more savvy over the years. So they know that there are small organizations. They also know there are nonprofits out there. And they've gotten better with their pricing. So I think it is definitely something that we could explore. We wanted to get the baseline, and that's what this survey represented.
Yeah, and thanks, Yvonne. I just wanted to add that one of the things I felt strongly about, and I think our entire leadership team felt strongly about, was that we wanted this to be a tool for us and not so much a tool about a grade or a number or an external, like, it would be great if we landed there and like to be able to champion that. But I think that the whole reason, one of the many reasons that Yvonne is here and doing what she's doing is about the prioritization of engagement in our workforce. And that's not about an external factor to me. That's more about how do we build from where we are and put actions and programs in place and activities and see how that is helping our workforce. And so, but I think you make a good point, Arish. At the end of the day, I think over time, as we learn from this and build from this, I think that would be the opportune time to then say, hey, we've got a really great place going on. We've got a great engagement level, and now we can use that potentially to help also market ourselves externally. But I think the reason for this and subsequent surveys and the things that we're doing now is more about just continuing to make Dash a great place to work for ourselves.
I will just say, I mean, I've followed the federal best places to work for a long time, federal employee viewpoint survey that informs that. I mean, I think for a first time survey, 42% is a very commendable result, because if you look at the history of that survey, what drives then higher response rates is then you see how management reacts to the first and second time survey. And if people are seeing, oh, this is a venue for positive change, then they're going to be honest, they're going to be forthcoming, they're going to see that it's not being used to retaliate against someone, because you figured out who was that person that said they were dissatisfied with many things. I did have one question. I was curious about whether there was engagement with ATU as part of this, because obviously the areas where we saw fewer survey responses were areas that are represented by bargaining unit. Were they sort of made aware that this was going on, and what was their reaction? Were they willing to sort of encourage their members to participate in this?
When we did the survey, it was right at the time of a change of leadership. So we got a switch over of stewards right at the time we were doing this. And so I think that played a factor in it. I also think, yes, they were aware. And we did do things like put flyers in mailboxes, and we put signs up, and all that kind of stuff. But maybe we could engage with them a little bit more now that we've done it one time. I think they can hopefully see the value of some of the things that we're doing to try to improve. And they can next time around say, you know what, this really is anonymous. They've worked on languages, they've done some of the things that are going to help you participate.
So some of the things that you uncover in the survey may help them, and when they come to the bargaining table next time, in terms of focusing on things they want to ask for that you see that there's a need for. So I can see how they could have an interest in it. And I think just from a credibility standpoint, there are people who are going to take the word of their shop steward or their union president,
Yes.
and say, okay, you say I can trust this.
That's right.
Then I can. And did you say how often was this going to be an annual
Yeah,
survey?
we chose not to do it again this year. Because of how much information we got, we wanted to have an opportunity to really make a difference in many areas of where we scored less favorable. But we do anticipate doing it again about this time next year.
Okay, and then from there you can decide that it makes sense to do annual. Oh, then you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an investment.
But I do see, I mean, I think, you have a great story to tell of what you're doing with the data and how you're responding and zeroing in on that. And hopefully, you know, people will see an improvement to the workplace. And it sounds like there are things that were surprising that you
Yes.
found out
Yes.
going into it. And so I like I like the direction it's going in, and I hope it continues to inform a lot of what we're doing to engage and recruit and retain our workforce. And I mean, the people with the 15 years tenure and more are the people who have given most of their career to Dash. You can hope that they are going to be very, very engaged because they've spent a lot of their professional life here. I mean, you could certainly see maybe some slide, somebody is right on the cusp of retirement and sort of more, you know, focused on that next chapter. But I think that's, you know, you want to see the people who've been there a long time because they've given so much of themselves. And it would be a shame if they felt that they weren't being served by organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Into general managers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have a lot to run through, but I'm going to try to be quick about it so that we're not here all night. I think we had some wonderful presentations and it was well worth the time investment. So if you find that we're running a little long, we can defer further discussion of any of my reports. I will not be personally offended. I want to start, as you mentioned before, talking about the budget. As we know, as many of you know, city manager's proposed budget was developed in a very tight fiscal environment this year, with a lot of difficult choices. And I think against that backdrop, it's important to note that the city manager's current proposal preserves Dash 4's operating support and continues funding needed to sustain our current levels of service. I think that was a really great thing the city did, and it also includes support tied to the collective bargaining obligations and an additional one-time continuation of line 32, understanding and recognizing that that service has not been on the road long enough to really have some good data behind it. On the capital side, the budget preserves funding for fleet replacement, and thanks to Art and the team who are working really hard on all of the relative moving parts of the CIP, and to the Dash team and city teams who've really applied for a lot of grants and programs. So we're covered, as we've mentioned in the past couple of meetings, for the next 2 years of our state of good repair fleet replacement. I want to mention that coming up this Monday, March 16th, here downstairs will be the City Council's Livable, Green, and Prospering section of the City Manager's Budget Work Session. That starts at 7 p.m. As always, we will be present in the room to answer any questions. And the OMB team does a great job of summarizing what went into this section of the budget and the impacts on Dash and other transit. As I've mentioned up here, I wanted to make sure I recognize that the city has a lot of different transit that it is funding. Additionally, there is a public hearing on the budget coming up on March 9th. That's this Saturday, starts at 9 a.m. also in this building. So just wanted to flag that for everybody in the event that you had any interest in attending that or watching that online. Moving into activities and community engagement, there's been a lot going on, and I think on the heels of what Yvonne just presented, this is really great to recap. So excuse the fact that I have a little bit of a script because I had to write down so much that the whole team is doing. But as was included in your materials in Boardable, we've highlighted several ways Dash is continuing to build visibility and partnerships throughout the community and making connections every day. This month, we are marking 2 major milestones for the organization. As previously mentioned, this is Dash's birthday. Today is. It also is Justin Wilson's birthday. I'm always having to wish him happy birthday when he was mayor. So they always shared a birthday together. And when we do large events, he always likes to mention that. And then we are also celebrating the fact that we were 5 years fare free. As seen on the screen here, we've got a great bus wrap that's out there in the community celebrating that. The update that you received also included notes on a recent visibility on a national level in Mass Transit Magazine. I've got a coveted printed copy here, right here. And that is regarding our fleet strategies and zero emission fleet transition. If you want to read the article, it is online, but we will have some printed copies at the office. And if anyone wants to look at it here, one of the things I noted is that there are several systems mentioned in this article, but every single visual is of us. So that's kind of cool. They were really interested in what we were doing, and they wanted to highlight us and our fleet. In addition, we are celebrating Women's History Month this month, and we have a fantastic themed bus wrap, which you can see the mock-up of there. Councilwoman Green joined me at the Dash facility late last week to do a tour and got to see the bus, and she will be involved in the event where this bus will be unveiled. And so that will be out there in the community throughout the month. Finally, I want to mention a really incredible partnership that I think is very important and has been high on my radar since I've been approached about this opportunity, which is partnering with Kids First Years. As you can see here, Kids First Years will be doing an event, and we will have a bus wrap unveiling for that will take place at Dash on Monday, April 6th at 10 a.m. Everyone is invited to join. The mayor will be there to speak, and we will have a Dash shuttle departing at 9:30 a.m. from William Ramsey, and all are welcome to attend. So if you are interested in going, Camilla is here. Please let her know. She will be continuing to manage that event, and I want to thank her personally for this is something that I got interested in, and I pulled Camilla in and I said, this is a really great opportunity, and I think this is something that we really need to do, and her team has really taken it with great charge and pride and done some really fantastic things. So I'm excited about that event, excited to see the work that's gone into it. And finally, not last but not least, I want to briefly recognize Daisy Allman, who couldn't be here this evening. She is so busy working, but she is Dash's operations manager, and on this picture, you can see her graduation from the CTAA Leadership Academy. This is a nationally respected program for emerging leaders in passenger transportation. It's designed to strengthen skills in leadership, strategic thinking, team management, and industry engagement. It's an intensive experience that also connects participants to the advocacy side of our work. So they were also there for CTAA's legislative fly-in. CTAA is the Community Transportation Association of America, which I have served for many years on, and I was involved early on in the conversations around developing this academy. So I was really proud to see her there. That her accomplishment here is really incredible, and it speaks not only to her talent and dedication, but also to the strength of the leadership bench that we're continuing to build at Dash. Talking again about engagement, we're really investing a lot of time and energy in our leadership and our young leadership at Dash. So I'm especially pleased, and that Stephanie was able to be there on our behalf to support her. So thank you, Stephanie, for doing that. On to the rodeo, for any rodeo fans in here. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our rodeo team. They represented us at the 2026 Virginia State Bus Rodeo. This bus rodeo is the 40-foot competition, and I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes about the 35-foot and paratransit competition, which I'm hopeful you will join us for in April. But this took place March 6th through 8th, and I'm really proud of how our team showed up to represent Dash. This year we competed with an all rookie operator team, so we had no veterans, and a newly formed maintenance team. So to see them perform as well as they did is especially exciting. In fact, our operators even received a compliment from the new director of the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. She was so pleased, noting how sharp they looked in their uniforms and how proud they were of working at Dash. It's not only a nice reflection of their professionalism, but represents the pride they brought to the event. In the operator competition, we had all these names are really hard to pronounce. So Shirfral Luzet Ged finished 8th. Nathaniel Esefa finished 14th. Kadir Ali finished 17th, and Sisay Malaku finished 26th. Although these are not first place landings, that's fine. This is a rookie team, and these are really impressive results for first-time competitors. So we were just really proud that they were there, and they should feel really good about that showing. Our maintenance team included Getachew Tarifi, El Mustafa Guala, and Luis Olivia. They also did an outstanding job, and they are pictured there taking their exam on the right. They finished 5th out of 9 teams as a newly formed team, and their first rodeo appearance. That's a very strong result, and something also we're proud of them. And thank you, John, for going down there. John was one of the leadership teams who was there the whole time, and got us a lot of great photos. So we were really happy you were there. I'm also especially happy to share that Sharifu received the Maria Boone Rookie Award, which is a wonderful honor and well-deserved. So we did bring home a trophy for the participation. They all made us really proud, and it speaks to their talent and engagement and commitment and professionalism. So thanks to the rodeo team for what they've done.
And Josh, city council gave Dash a shout out Tuesday night on this too.
Oh, great, great. I'll have to go back and watch that. Moving on to what we've had going on today. Today is, again, as I mentioned, our 42nd birthday. And I want to recognize a whole bunch of outstanding employees who celebrated today as part of our annual awards program. It took place over the lunch hour at the Dash facility where I presented awards, and all of our leadership team went out to present awards and provide food to individuals who are out in the field working. One of the things I think that we've talked a lot about internally is it's basically impossible to get our team together in one place at one time, and that's been a real a challenge as we've grown to figure out how to get people we used to be when we were small do big events and to capture everybody, but we just can't do that anymore. But among this year's top recognition, Adamasu Yemain was honored as our #1 employee in customer service. Wahid Sawri was recognized as Maintenance Employee of the Year. And our Dash All-Stars of the Year were Gembis, Gebres, James Tran, and Eric, pictured here in the middle, receiving their award. We also presented our highest honor, the Dash Difference Award, in remembrance of Joy Stallings, who was the late Dash dispatcher, for her outstanding service. And that went to Angela Brown. Angela Brown is over here on the right, whose dedication, positivity, and impact has truly embodied the spirit of Dash. Angela is one of our training instructors and has been with us, I believe, since the shutdown, the Blue Line shuttle that we did back in 2019. And finally, I want to note the retirement of Earl Jackson. He's a truly legendary member of the Dash team who is closing out a remarkable 36 years of service. And I learned today that I already knew that Earl had pulled the first bus out of the Dash garage when Dash started in 1984. What I didn't know is that he then also pulled the first bus out of the new Dash facility when that opened in 2009. And I asked him about that, and he said he had a buddy in dispatch who helped make that happen. It's good to know people.
Take a break then? He only had 36 years of service.
So he started with Dash and then started a career with the post office and came back to Dash part-time and finished out his career at Dash part-time while still working full-time at the post office. He retired 3 years ago from the post office. So we will celebrate his retirement on Thursday of next week with his family with a small reception, and I'm grateful to all of the work that he's done for our for Dash and everybody there. I just noticed, Matt, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Just two things. First, we should make sure Dash's birthday is always on the current mayor's birthday, not Justin Wilson's.
That's right.
May help us. The second thing is, and I don't know this to be a fact, but I heard from people inside City Hall that Scott Survell introduced some legislation to perhaps consolidate Northern Virginia's regional or local transit agencies. Is that real, and is that a threat that could pose a problem to us? Thank you.
So thank you for flagging that. That is a part of the legislative process that we've been working heavily on in Richmond. That is in fact a budget amendment that he added to the funding budget on the state level. What it reads is that the Department of Rail and Public Transportation shall study the feasibility of merging all Northern Virginia transit systems under one system. We have spoke directly with Senator Survell and told him that is not on the table. The mayor has told him that. Everyone on council, we have told him that. We have said, why are you pushing this? Ultimately, it's not something he's willing to drop. And so we have come out in opposition of that. We are going to demand to be a part of that study and that conversation. We feel very confident that that study is going to come back and explain exactly why that is not a good idea and no one is interested in entertaining that. And we'll also point to the fact that this was already done in the 1960s. It didn't work out, and that's why Dash is here. So this is frankly a waste of time, but it is something we're going to participate in and cooperate with to ensure that the study properly reflects the realities of what Northern Virginia bus systems are doing for the community. So thank you for highlighting that. It is in the budget, but it is a study.
Keep us posted because, we will be the best advocates for our position.
Absolutely. Yeah, we looked closely at the language, and the language does not mandate anything. It just mandates a study to explain the feasibility of that. So again, our being at the table for that conversation and knowing that DRPT already understands transit in this region, I think is going to go a long way in helping to explain and reiterate the reason that Dash exists and the reason that the other systems exist. And the reality that this is a conversation that needs to stop. This came up also during the DMV moves. It was raised by him as well. He went to the news and complained about it in the news, saying DMV moves should be about consolidation. No one on DMV moves agreed. So I think it's important publicly to say that as in our perspective, and I don't want our workforce concerned that this is going to end up in some kind of a bad place. We've got a lot of resources out there that are going to be involved in this conversation that are going to prove very clearly why that is a conversation that needs to stop.
Do you want a letter from us? Would that be helpful at this point?
I don't think it's necessary in the context of the budget bill. Again, because I think what the budget calls for is that study to be conducted. I think that what I'm going to push for is for there to be representation of the governing entities and their perspectives on it included in the outcome of the study as well.
Keep us informed as when we can help.
I will. And ultimately, he doesn't have the authority, I don't think, to, it's a little bold for me to say in a public forum, but the reality is, we govern Dash, you all govern Dash, and city council owns Dash and makes the decisions about Dash. And so, at the end of the day, Dash is primarily almost entirely funded with local dollars anyway. So, but thanks for raising that, Matt. Any other questions before I move on?
I'll just give a shout out for the Women's History Tour that Dash is sending its Women's History it's Women's History Month wrapped bus is actually being given by a friend of mine, Gail Converse, who also is a winner of the Dash, one of the winners of the Dash Poetry Contest. So perhaps we'll see her in April, but I know she's very excited to have partnering with Caleb to figure out a good spot to display the bus along the route in Old Town. I've been on that tour. It's for an organization called Alexandria Celebrates Women, and they've been actually doing it for quite some time every month, but this should get a lot of people in March. And I think it's great that we're partnering. Gail called me actually to tell me the news, very excited. So I was pleased that we're really looking for community organizations that we can show up for. So good. Kudos on that. And I can see why you needed a script today. It's a lot of good stuff.
I need to write all this down.
For sharing all of that. So many milestones and so much recognition to give to our team, and it's great. So especially coming on the heels of what we're doing to improve employee engagement, you really see how our people are our best assets, and they're showing up for Dash the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. With that, I will move quickly into the strategic plan. I want to give some context here. This conversation is about a draft update to the strategic plan. The ask of the board after I run through this presentation is just to give some feedback as to anything you'd like us to look at tweaking more, if there's anything in the draft that you feel needs additional attention or revision, and we'll take that and we'll come back. So this today is not, you're not being asked to adopt anything, just wanted to put that out there. So starting out, just explaining that over the past 6 weeks, our leadership team, which has included our deputy directors and above, that includes our directors of our departments and our executive leadership team, have undertaken a full strategic plan review and facilitated sessions. Each of our goals and objectives have newly aligned overall measures and specific initiatives that we have drafted to ensure alignment with the board's shared goals. Our internal teams are also identifying launch dates for each initiative associated works plans. After which we will establish cross-functional work groups, and those cross-functional work groups will be looking at the initiatives to include specific timelines. As you can see in this sort of graph here. We have largely completed the first 3 steps of this process. So we're at the point where we're checking in with you to understand if we're on the right track. Following this meeting, we'll move towards a finished plan. Once the plan is finished and adopted, the board will receive regular progress updates on the strategic plan progress throughout the year. And we'll also work together to establish my work plan late spring, early summer into the fall. Again, what we're looking for from the board is feedback on each of the 5 strategic goals and measures. I will go through each of them as have been revised by the team. So starting with system excellence, which is representative of our focus on providing a robust transportation system that meets our customers' needs. We have updated the outcome measure for this goal to reflect the reality that ridership is our most effective measurement. It represents the overall use of our system by our customers, both who choose to ride and who use us out of necessity. Objectives associated with this goal have also been refined to focus on 2, running buses when people need them and taking people where they want to go. We found that 2 of the old objectives were important, but didn't align properly with this goal. So coordination is still important. If you're looking at the old plan, I did not put that on the screen, but it is in boardable under your documents if you need to take a look at that. But it's now reflected in goal 5, and placing bus stops in the right places remains important, but we feel that fits more appropriately in goal 2, which you will see in a moment. I want to note that all of the targets that are under objective measures, some of them have dates under which to show transparency of when the team internally anticipates being able to set those objective measures and to establish those targets. So I just wanted to highlight that for you. If I move too quickly and there's anything you want to look at also in your documents on boardable associated with this meeting, you can pull up this presentation. So I'm sorry if I flip through too quickly. There's something there for you to look at.
1.2, talk about the ATV updated survey and when and how that's being administered.
So Ray, I'll let you jump into that. And the team's here to help answer these questions because they've been working on some of these objective measures too.
Yeah, so this is something I would normally refer to Stevie. She's out this week. So the ATV was last conducted in calendar year 2019, give or take. So essentially, we're 6 years into the ATV. Due to normal lifespan of a study like that, it's just time for us to revisit ATV and just to ensure that we accurately reflect the operating conditions in the post-pandemic world, post-recovery world, and just monitor the progress of the service improvements in the new Dash network that has been implemented since, and ensure that we're on a proper track to implement the remainder of the division and or just the remainder of the division to again reflect the current conditions. So that's been identified that as a need that needs to be addressed almost immediately in front of us. Ideally within FY27, worst case scenario, it might be something that we need to seek funding for within FY27, with a start date no later than FY28.
Do we envision bringing in, I'm just trying to figure out if it's going to be as large an effort or undertaking as the original ATV. Probably not, because you're not redesigning the whole network, but we bringing in consultants or what sort of community process? Because that was a very long process to create the ATV.
It was, and I don't envision it will be as deep as an effort. We won't be starting from scratch. And like you mentioned, it'll be a revisit, an updated refresh of an existing effort. So it will likely be large enough, but we will need outside help and a lot of public engagement processes, surveys and data assessments and whatnot, but will not be to the scale of the original ATV effort, which is you witnessed the scale of that.
So we're gonna be doing this in FY27, it sounds like. So that's when, I'm just trying to figure out when we'll kind of get more. This is the first time we've talked about it. That's why I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, we don't have the timeline identified yet. The need is identified. The funding mechanism and the timeline to get it executed it has yet to be identified. So it could be as early as FY27. Within FY27, it could be as late as within FY28.
This is also part of the ATSP, right? Because we talked about that in the ATSP document as far as updating the ATV.
Correct. Yes, it is referenced in ATSP, and ultimately the ATV influences and drives the ATSP.
Right. So this is really just more about establishing a target based off of that other work. this isn't speaking specifically to that work as much as it's an overarching goal.
Well, except to find out where people want to go that we're not going, you have to ask them. So
That's right.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to know what survey we were referencing that we were going to use to establish the target of whether we're going right places. So
You got it. Good. Okay, so we'll move on to customer experience, which has also been updated to be measured against our newly released Rate Your Ride tool instead of the customer service index, which we felt proved to be unreliable and too easily influenced by varying methodology versus the raw data. So we've launched this new Rate Your Ride tool is on our buses today for passengers to provide feedback via QR code immediately. And we've already started collecting that data. As you will see, we have kept the objectives from before and added a new one, which is an update to the previous objective around bus stops in goal 1. This now focuses on maximizing access to our services, which accessibility to bus stops is just one element of the multiple that would comprise an initiative around this objective. So we felt like that helped to better expand that and make it a more useful objective measure. Moving on to environmental stewardship, we have kept the goal and measure the same, but we have updated our objectives. These objectives are to be tied more to getting people onto transit as seen in 3.1, which we know is an environmental impact and is aligned with the feedback we heard and the priorities expressed during the joint city work session last fall. We have also updated 3.2 and 3.3 to focus on running as much service with zero emission buses and driving more initiatives that continuously improve the facility versus just relying on a quote unquote lead rating, which is what the previous strategic plan referenced. We feel this would lend itself more appropriately to initiatives internally, such as, for example, new recycling programs, the process that we've already undertaken around swapping out lighting fixtures to be more energy efficient, and so forth.
Sorry, question on this one. So I see we do have one ridership measure under the goal 3. That used to be a larger part of goal 3 was just growing our ridership overall. Can you explain kind of the thought process of just looking at one segment of our ridership as opposed to overall trips that are taken within the city?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let the team add to this. Choice riders obviously are going to be people who have access to a car or other methods. And so what we're trying to do is pull them out of those single occupancy vehicles and into transit. And to the greatest degree that we can survey that and understand people who have chosen to ride Dash and have a conversation with them to understand the reasoning. We can also do more outreach and more marketing. We can have more efforts to pull those people on the transit and grow the use of transit, which has that environmental impact. So that's the.
Yeah, I mean, I support that. We used to have a broader goal that looked at just how many people we were getting on our bus, because we always measured our carbon input out, our carbon output in terms of, how many people we moved and how many cars we took off the road, but that was including all the riders who were transit reliant. So I was just curious if we're missing something by not looking overall at how the system's doing.
I'll let the team add to this too.
I think what you're referring to, all of that rolls up into the outcome measure of the goal itself. Total tons of CO2 emissions reduced. That accounts for the direct impacts of the fleet, of the passengers, and also of the vehicles taken off.
But you want to look more at that subset. Okay. Supposed to look at everybody. Okay.
I see a hand up, Free. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. On goal 3, I like this and thanks for pointing out the kind of the overarching outcome measure. I think that's helpful, but I think the pairing of 3.1 and 3.2 does a good job of capturing this impact. How do we measure 3.1 of the number of choice riders, and do we have experience in that? How reliable do we think that metric would be?
So this is something that it's been a while since we have set a benchmark for this, and David and many of us have recalled, we used to say that over 50% of our riders are choice riders, and that's something that we have done. well before New Dash Network and well before ATV. Really, the best method we have to establishing that benchmark is by using statistically valid methods of surveying, one in community and second in ridership, to just get and this is an effort that extends beyond organization and needs outside help. And so we saw this as an opportunity to reestablish that benchmark and understand what is our measure of choice riders. And doing an update to an ATV is one of those few opportunities where it's a good opportunity for us to establish that. To your point, Ravine, it is very difficult, and it's not something we actively monitor on a routine day-to-day basis.
Got it. Thanks. And I also had a question on goal 1 and 2. I see that 1 is looking at ridership and passengers per platform hour, and we've talked a lot about the relationship between frequency and ridership, and I didn't see anything in here related to frequency, and it may just be that the point of frequency is ridership, and so that shows up somewhere a different way in the scoreboard. But the team's much more experienced in understanding that relationship between frequency and ridership. Is frequency something worth elevating, or how are you guys thinking about frequency?
I'll let the team add to this, but I think you raise a really good point, Praveen. And part of this update is really helping to reestablish our focus areas under these goals and the initiatives that we're building out. Obviously, initiatives are not something the board is involved in. That's something we do on the side of sort of working towards these. But you make a really good point that improving frequency does ultimately drive ridership. I'll let the team add to that in the context of what the team here has been also thinking about how we're going to measure that. But did you all want to add anything to that? Looks like you wanted to.
Yeah, one of the things that's not visible in this slide deck is under the initiatives layer, that one of the initiatives that's been identified by the team is to establish or revisit and reestablish service standards. Service standards where we would speak to service frequencies and other service parameters that are driven by the ATV. What we have decided to raise to the objective measure level is essentially a result of that. So the objective measure of system-wide passengers per revenue hour is a resulting productivity, right? If we're good at frequency, we're meeting that initiative well, we should be seeing positive results at this level for productivity.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, it logically flows. I think there are a lot of other ways to get to ridership, and I was just keying in on frequency because, of what little reading I've done on this, and Josh, you and I have communicated about this before, that it appears that there are some tipping points. I think especially with us looking at choice riders, if you get to kind of a high enough frequency, it becomes kind of an easy default for people. People just know the bus is coming, right? They don't have to think about the schedule, and that we've clearly seen there are ways to get ridership up without getting to that level of frequency, right? I don't think we have kind of a 12-minute frequency kind of throughout the day on too many in too many places, but we're still breaking records. So anyway, that's the reason I was keying in on that is as we're orienting toward the environmental goals, especially toward getting people on transit, and we believe that that's a way to induce that frequency is a way to induce that demand. I just was hoping there was a way to surface that.
Well, what we can do is, again, the purpose of today's presentation is to hear from you all. So thank you for sharing that. And I think what we'll do is we'll go back and have a robust conversation around that, Praveen, and see how that slots in. Good.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, so moving on here to goal 4. We got a lot going on around goal 4, as you heard from Yvonne in my previous slides, but I do want to highlight that we have proposed refining this goal to be more focused around fostering an environment that champions high levels of employee engagement. So this is one of the only goals and remember the board decides the goals. The board decides the goals and their measures and agrees with those. And then that informs us of the work that we're doing. And so we felt it was important to update that and reflect that that priority. And it utilizes both our base from our first survey and builds upon it against future engagement scores and pulse checks. So we've gone ahead and dropped in the target here. And the other thing to know about targets is that we want to set a target. We want to work towards that. We want to show meaningful progress. We hit that target. We hold that target. We need to be talking about where we move that target next. So that's a part of that component. On the objectives around this goal, 4.1 and 4.2 remain unchanged, but with updated measures. While objective 4.3 replaces the former 4.3 and 4.4. Building a sense of inclusion and belonging, we felt does a great job of rolling together the previous objectives around networking, professional development, and prioritizing what it makes employees choose to work at Dash. So that was the basis of fine tuning again the objectives around goal 4. Finally, goal 5, which previously read as fiscal responsibility and efficiency, has been trimmed down to just fiscal responsibility since we felt that effectively encompasses the intent of this goal. The outcome measure for this is proposed to be updated and center around our cost per rider, which is a measurable and comparable statistic to the industry. We have a wide swath of access to data from the National Transit Database that can help us give a true understanding of how effective we are with our funds relative to other transit providers. And as a part of the objectives, we have brought forward the previous measures around year-end budget position. Speaking of the objectives, 5.1 remains unchanged. However, the measures have been updated, while 5.2 was revised as shown, but keeps the previous measures. Finally, 5.3 is new here, but it was previously reflected in goal 1. It has been updated to be more focused on the effective use of regional resources through coordination. So an example of this is the work we're doing with DNB Moves and the priorities around that, and other initiatives that we will work on to ensure the best regional impact possible. So I will wrap up and then we can get into any other questions you all might have. For the next steps after this meeting, the team is taking back your feedback and your questions to complete final revisions, and then we will bring forward a final strategic plan for your approval. And I have one more slide that's unrelated, so I just wanted to touch base, make sure. I know I went through that quickly. There's a lot of material here. Again, as mentioned, we've put it in the boardable so you can take a look at it, and if you think of things later and you want to shoot me a note, I do ask you to do that. We want to make sure that what we come back with as a final revision is aligned with your priorities.
That'll look great.
Thank you. All right, well, I will help to wrap up this meeting by saying that our ridership report is out, and Jesse noted that we've been performing really well, but I do want to flag, as is noted in your board packet, we are working through some NTD or National Transit Database certification issues. And through that process, we may have to adjust total ridership numbers up or down for the current fiscal year. We don't anticipate this being a major change. However, as part of the working through the process with our vendor to ensure that our automated passenger counting systems are certified in the reporting and properly calibrated. I'm hopeful the numbers trend up. That would be great, but some may trend down. I'm forever the optimist. But we will continue to update you all as we look at that. And that does only affect the current fiscal year. So it doesn't affect any annual reporting at this point for us. Mr. Chair, with that.
Yeah, thanks. I just need to ask one question about, we went through the budget stuff, and I'm sorry, I know we're at the end of our meeting. We typically send a letter regarding our budget, at the very least, I think, to try to get a budget memo related to unfunded APB improvements. This would seem to be the meeting where we would need to authorize to do that, given the.
There is already a budget question related to that that's been submitted, I think. I saw it come across. I don't know if you have access to the art to read exactly what it says, but it did come
Give
from
me a second.
Councilman Newby. And we are working to respond to that. And I think that that highlights all of the things you're asking about.
Okay. Well, I mean, specifically, you know, we always ask for what are prioritized improvements. So if this is going to get at what we've already, I mean, I know that we only prioritize the remaining FY 22 improvements, and then we submit the rest of the list, I think, unprioritized.
Right,
We
and
feel the need to get through that.
I think we didn't bring it forward because this year we did this alternative approach, which is where we did all of that with the initial letter that outlined and provided
Oh,
a
okay.
table them, so council members already
So you
have
have
all of
that.
that material that went with the original letter, but did you want to add to it?
Yeah, so as part of the budget process every year, council members can formally submit budget questions. They get a formal response from staff, it allows them to consider it in the add delete process. So Councilman El Nubi asks the following question. What dash route expansions or modifications were not included in the FY 2027 budget? And what are their costs and equity scores? What would it cost to increase dash line 32 frequency as follows? And then gives a fairly detailed frequency outline for that line 32.
So potentially getting at the remainder of the improvements for that route.
That's right. I think he was maybe asking us to build them out in a way that was more piecemeal.
Yeah.
Than just the total.
Okay. Which, I mean, it makes sense, because that may be all that they can do. I guess depending on what comes out of the work session, we may feel the need to do some advocacy if there is a proposal going and say, you know, we need to build support within council. I just don't want to close the door on being able to do advocacy for that. Because I guess by our April meeting would that deletes already be in by our
By
April?
our April meeting, add deletes are due the following day at midnight.
Okay, so we may need to, let's see how the work session goes and then decide if we need to do a letter related to line 30. I understand you're gonna provide those segments, but I think the DAC has spoken very forcefully about line 32, and I think it would be remiss for us not to, if there's the possibility of getting additional funding to improve the remaining segments. So, let's talk next week about how that goes in the budget session, and we could report out to the board and see what folks, if folks feel about going forward. Great, thanks. I know this is a long meeting tonight. Thank you all for your patience. Next meeting, April 8th, Dash headquarters, 5:30 PM. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all right, all in favor? Aye. All right, thanks. Good night, everybody.
No.
Thank you all.
I've never been in the.
In this building, so.
The only other meeting I've.
Yes.
Kevin, and I second.
Very nice.
Oh, well, yeah.